Welcome back to Quiet Ireland. I'm glad you're here tonight. If you like my content, please press the like button and subscribe for more. Thank you. Get yourself comfortable now. Pull the covers up if you need to. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw relax. There's nothing you need to do tonight except listen. Tonight I want to tell you an old story. One that has been told along the west coast of Ireland for hundreds and hundreds of years, passed from grandmother to grandchild, from fisherman to fisherman, on dark evenings just like this one. It is the legend of the Selkies. If you've never heard of them, Selkies are creatures from Irish and Scottish folklore. They live in the sea as seals. But on certain nights, quiet nights, moonlit nights, they can shed their seal skin and walk on land as people. Beautiful and silent, otherworldly people who belong to the ocean. It's a gentle story, a little bit magical, and I think by the end of it, you'll be sound asleep. Close your eyes if you have not already, and come with me to the west coast of Ireland. It is a long time ago, centuries maybe. The Ireland of this story has no roads, no electricity, no noise except what the land and sea make themselves. Picture the west coast, the wild Atlantic side, where the land runs out and there's nothing between you and America except 3,000 miles of grey ocean. The coastline here is nothing like a beach you'd go on holiday to. It's dramatic and ancient, black rocks jutting out into the water, cliffs dropping straight down into the sea, waves that have been travelling for days, arriving here and breaking with a sound like distant thunder. But tonight the sea is calm, unusually calm, the kind of calm that feels intentional, like the ocean has decided to rest. The moon is full and low, throwing a pale silver road against the water. The stars are out in their thousands. You forget, away from city lights, just how many stars there are. The rocks along the shore are wet and dark, and on one flat rock, half in and half out of the water, a group of seals are resting. 6 or 7 of them, lying still, breathing slowly, their dark eyes open and watching. Everything is quiet, everything is still, and then something happens. One by one the seals begin to move. They rise up on the rock and slowly, they begin to peel away their skin. Not like something painful, more like removing a coat at the end of a long day. Easy, natural, like they've done this 1,000 times. And underneath, people, men and women, pale and silent, with dark eyes that still hold the colour of the deep ocean. They stretch in the moonlight, these seal people, these Selkies. They leave their skins folded carefully on the rocks, and they walk to the shore, and they begin to dance. Not a wild dance, a slow, swaying, wordless kind of movement, like the tide itself has learned to move on land. They don't speak, they don't sing, they just move together in the moonlight, on the wet sand, with the calm sea behind them. Now there is a young man, a fisherman from a small village not far along the coast. He has been out late, checking his boat, and he has seen them. He is hidden behind a rock, barely breathing, watching with eyes wide. He has heard the stories all his life. Every child on this coast has, but he never truly believed. and then he sees her, one of the Selkie women. She has wandered a little apart from the others, standing at the edge of the water, looking out to the sea. Her dark hair loose around her shoulders, her face turned up to the moon. The young man has never seen anyone like her in his life. He looks at the rock. He sees the folded skins, and he does something that he should not do. He takes one. He doesn't think it through. He acts before he can stop himself. He takes one of the seal skins and he hides it beneath a loose stone in the wall of his cottage, behind a locked door. And without her skin, the Selkie woman cannot return to the sea. The young man brought her home. She went with him quietly. She had no choice without her skin. But she wasn't angry, or if she was, she didn't show it. She was just still and watchful and sad in a way that was hard to look at directly. She learned his language. She learned the ways of land. She was kind to him, genuinely kind, and in time he convinced himself that she was happy, that she had chosen this life, that she had forgotten the sea. They were married, they had children, 2 boys with dark eyes just like their mothers, and she loved them. You could see that she did. That part was real. But on certain nights she would stand at the window looking toward the coast, and the look on her face then was something her husband couldn't understand, something ancient and deep, like a memory his mind had no word for. The sea was always there, just a mile or 2 away. She could smell it in the air on certain evenings. She could hear it sometimes when the wind was right. She never asked about her skin, not once. She never searched for it openly, but she never forgot it either. One evening, years later, her youngest boy was playing near the old stone wall of the cottage. He found a loose stone, and behind it something soft and grey and folded. He brought it to his mother, the way children do, proud of his discovery, not understanding what it was. She took it from his hands very gently, and she held it against her chest for a long moment, eyes closed. She kissed her boys. She kissed them both a long time on their foreheads, and she walked to the sea. The fisherman found her gone when he came home that evening. He understood immediately. He walked to the coast and he stood at the water's edge for a long time, and some versions of the story say that on certain nights, for the rest of his life, a seal would come and rest on the rocks near his boat, just one, watching him with dark, calm eyes. And he always believed it was her, checking that he was alright, that the boys were alright, still loving them in the way she was able to, from the other side of the water. That is the legend of the Selkies, one of the oldest stories on this island. And I think the reason it has lasted so long is because it understands something true, that some part of us all belongs somewhere wild and quiet, somewhere beyond the noise of daily life. Maybe that's what sleep is, a nightly return to that quiet place, that deep, still place inside of yourself that the day never quite reaches. You're going there now. Let your body be heavy. Let your thoughts slow down the way the sea slows down on a calm night. Flat and dark and quietly breathing. In through the nose, long and slow, out through the mouth. All the way out. You're safe, you're warm, the story is over and sleep is very close now. Good night. Thank you for spending this evening with me at Quiet Ireland. If you would like more Irish folklore and sleep stories, please subscribe. I will be back next week with another quiet tale. Sleep well. Welcome back to Quiet Ireland. Tonight I want to tell you about something that is woven into the landscape of this country, Ireland, in a way that is hard to explain to someone who did not grow up here. You can drive through the Irish countryside and see them if you know what you're looking for. Circular mounds rising gently from flat fields. A ring of old trees growing in a perfect circle on a hillside. A patch of land that a farmer has ploughed around for generations, carefully without ever touching what is inside. Fairy forts. Archaeologists call them ring forts, ancient circular enclosures built thousands of years ago, some as far back as the Iron Age. There are 40,000 of them scattered across this island. 40,000. But in Irish folklore there's something else entirely. The fairy folk, the people of the mounds. And in Ireland, even today, you do not disturb them. Get yourself comfortable now, close your eyes, and let me tell you all about the fairy forts of Ireland. Picture the Irish countryside, the Midlands maybe, County Laois, County Tipperary, County Clare, flat green fields stretching away in every direction under a wide grey sky. And there, in the middle of a field, a circular mound, maybe 30 meters across, maybe 50, raised slightly from the ground around it, ringed with a ditch and an earthen bank, and on top of it, or around it, a circle of old trees, hawthorn mostly, ancient and gnarled and dense. The farmer who owns that field has never touched it. His father never touched it. His grandfather never touched it. It still sits there in the middle of the field year after year, decade after decade, century after century, completely untouched. Because everyone knows you do not cut the trees on a fairy fort. You do not plough through it. You do not build on it. And you do not move the stones. And if you ask why, the answer is always the same. Because something lives there. Something old. Something that was here long before us. And something that will be here long after us. The fairy folk of Irish legend are not the small, delicate, winged creatures of children's stories. They are something older and stranger than that, powerful and proud and not to be crossed. They live in a world that runs alongside ours, just beneath the surface of things, just beyond the edge of what we can see. And the fairy forts are where the two worlds touch. The old stories about what happens when you disturb a fairy fort are remarkably consistent across Ireland. Livestock fall sick, crops fail, strange misfortunes befall the family, illness comes, accidents happen, and sometimes, people see things, hear things, at night, near the mound, when everything else is quiet. There are farmers across Ireland today, educated men and women, people with smartphones and electric cars, who will not touch the fairy fort in their field. Not because they necessarily believe in fairies in any literal sense, but because their grandmother told them not to, and her grandmother told her. And somewhere in that long chain of inherited wisdom, they feel there is something worth respecting, something that says, leave this place alone. There is a word in Irish for the feeling you get near a fairy fort at dusk. A particular quality of stillness. The way the light seems to sit differently around the mound. The way animals sometimes stop and look at it. The way a conversation sometimes drops to a whisper without anyone deciding to whisper. There's no equivalent word in English which tells you something about how long the Irish have been paying attention to these places. Now I want to tell you about something that happened in 1999, because this is not just ancient history. In County Clare, a motorway was being built, the M18, between Limerick and Galway, a modern road, a major infrastructure project with engineers and contractors and tight deadlines. And in the path of the motorway stood a hawthorn bush, a fairy tree. A folklorist named Eddie Lenihan was driving past one evening when he saw the machinery and the road workers beside it. He stopped. He asked what was going to happen to the tree. They told him it would be cleared. Eddie Lenihan is one of Ireland's last traditional storytellers, a keeper of the old stories, and he knew exactly what that tree was. According to the legend, that particular hawthorn bush stood on a fairy path. It was a meeting point, a gathering place for the fairy folk of Kerry on their way north to do battle with the fairies of Connacht. An ancient invisible road that crossed the very spot where the engineers wanted to lay their tarmac. Lenihan wrote to the newspapers. He went on the radio. He warned that if the tree were destroyed, the road would be cursed, that accidents would happen on that stretch of motorway, that the Kerry fairies and the Connacht fairies, denied their meeting place, would take their anger out on the road and everyone who used it. The story was picked up by the New York Times. The headline read, "If you believe in the fairies, don't bulldoze their lair," and the tree was saved. The county council had it written into the construction contract that the tree must be protected, that the motorway could not come within 5 meters of it. And so today, if you drive the M18 between Limerick and Galway, you will see it. A small, solitary hawthorn bush sitting in the median of a busy modern motorway. Cars and trucks passing it at 100 kilometers per hour, and the tree just sitting there quiet and untouched, the way it has always been. In 2002, someone attacked it with a chainsaw in the night, cut off every branch, left only the trunk. The tree survived, and today, as of 2026, the tree still stands. Now, what do I think about all of this? I think Ireland is a very old country, and old countries accumulate things, stories, memories, layers of meaning that don't always translate into modern language. I think the fairy forts are real. I've seen them. They sit in their fields with a quality of stillness that is hard to explain. Whether that stillness comes from the fairies or from 10,000 years of people treating a place as sacred, or from something else entirely, I honestly don't know. What I do know is that 40,000 of these places have survived on this island. Through famine and war and modernization and everything else Ireland has been through. And they have survived in large part because people chose to leave them alone. There is something in that worth thinking about. Something about the relationship between a people and their land. Something about what it means to inherit a story and pass it on. The fairy forts are still out there tonight, in their fields, in their circles of old trees, under whatever sky is above them, quietly doing whatever it is they have always done. There is something comforting, I think, about the idea that the world is older and stranger and more layered than we can fully understand. That beneath the ordinary surface of things, the roads and the routines and the noise of daily life, there are older stories still running quietly underneath. Ireland reminds you of that if you let it. And tonight, wherever you are in the world, I hope you can feel a little of that oldness and that stillness, that sense that you are part of something much larger and longer than any single day. Let your body be heavy now. Let the day go. Breathe in slowly and out. The world is old and quiet tonight, and you are safe in it. Sleep well. Good night. Thank you for spending this evening at Quiet Ireland. New videos every week. Sleep stories, folklore, and gentle conversations from the heart of Ireland. Subscribe and come back whenever you need to rest. Welcome back to Quiet Ireland. I'm so glad you're here. Tonight I want to tell you about the most loved story in all of Irish folklore. If you ask anyone in Ireland to name one old legend, this is very often the one that they will tell you. It has been told for so long and so often that it has become something like a piece of the land itself. This is the story of the Children of Lir. It's a long story, and it's a gentle, sad, and ultimately peaceful one. There is cruelty in it, but there is also endurance and love, and finally, rest. I think it's a good story for tonight, because in its own way, it's about waiting a very long time for peace to come, and it does come in the end. So get yourself as comfortable as you can. Let your body sink into the bed. Close your eyes if you haven't already. And let me take you back a very long time ago to the Ireland of gods and kings before the Ireland we know today. Long ago, in the ancient Ireland of legend, there lived a great lord of the sea named Lir. He was one of the Tuatha De Danann, an ancient magical people said to have ruled Ireland before humans came. Lir lived in a great hall by a lake, and he was deeply loved by his people. Lir's first wife had given him 4 children, and he loved them more than anything else in the world. There was Fionnuala the eldest, gentle and wise beyond her years. Her 3 brothers, Aya, Fiachra, and Con. The twins Fiachra and Con were still very young, playful and full of light. But Lir's wife died when the children were still small, and grief settled over the household like a heavy fog. Lir loved his children so completely and so fiercely that in time he remarried, hoping to give them a mother's care again. His second wife was named Aoife. She was the sister of his first wife, and when she first came to Lir's hall, she seemed at first to love the children as her own. For a time things were peaceful. The 4 children grew close to their stepmother. They played together by the lake. Fionnuala would braid flowers into the hair of the little ones. Aya would carry his younger brothers on his shoulders through the shallow water. The great hall of Lir echoed most days with laughter, but Aoife's heart began to change. She watched how completely Lir loved his children, how his whole world seemed to turn around them, and slowly, quietly, jealousy took root in her. She began to feel that she came second, that she would never be loved the way the children were loved. And in time, that jealousy became something much darker. One late summer day, Aoife told the children they were going to visit their grandfather, a great king, and that they would travel together to the shores of Lake Derravara to bathe before the journey. The children, trusting her completely, went eagerly into the cool water of the lake, and it was there, standing at the water's edge, that Aoife raised an ancient druid's wand and spoke a spell over them. The children felt their bodies changing even as they swam. Their arms became wings, their skin became soft white feathers. Their voices, which had called out to each other in the water only moments before, became the long, mournful cry of swans. Fionnuala, always the strongest and wisest of the four, called out to Aoife, even in her new swan's voice, to know how long this course would last. And Aoife, perhaps feeling some flicker of the guilt that would haunt her forever, answered, 300 years upon Lake Derravara, 300 years upon the Sea of Moyle between Ireland and Scotland, in cold and treacherous water, and 300 years upon the Western Sea by the Isle of Inishglua, 900 years in total before the course would break. But Aoife, even in her cruelty, could not undo one small kindness. She granted the children one mercy, that though they were the bodies of swans, they would keep their own voices and their own minds, and they would be able to sing more beautifully than any music ever heard in Ireland for as long as their course lasted. When Lir learned what happened, his grief was almost beyond bearing. He rushed to the lake and found not his 4 children, but 4 white swans, who came to him and pressed their heads against his hands, and he understood. Aoife, for her crime, was cursed in turn and transformed into a demon of the air, doomed to wander formlessly for all eternity. But that punishment brought Lir no comfort. His children were still gone from him, wrapped in white feathers, bound to water for 900 years. And so began the 900 years of the Swan children. For the first 300 years they remained upon Lake Derravara, the very water where they had been cursed. And every day for those 300 years their father Lir came to the shore to sit with them. He built himself a small dwelling by the water's edge, so that he would never be far from his children. Each morning he would come down to the lake, and the 4 swans would glide toward him, and he would speak to them, and they would speak back in their strange, beautiful, sorrowful voices. People came from all across Ireland to hear the children sing. Word spread of 4 swans on Lake Derravara, whose song was so beautiful it could ease sorrow and calm anger and bring peace to troubled hearts. Kings and travellers alike would sit on the shore for hours listening. Fionnuala, though she wore a swan's body, never stopped being the eldest sister in her heart. Every night she gathered her 3 brothers beneath her wings to keep them warm, the way she always had, and she sang softly to them until they slept. Those 300 years, though strange and sorrowful, were not without their comfort. They had each other. They had their father, faithful and present every single day, and they had a lake that in time felt something like home. But 300 years is not 900, and when the time came, the course called them onward. When the 300 years on Lake Derravara ended, the swan children felt the pull of the course drawing them north and east, to the cold, grey, treacherous sea that runs between Ireland and Scotland, the Sea of Moyle. This was the hardest of the 300 years by far. The Sea of Moyle in the old stories is wild and merciless. Storms came without warning. Waves rose high enough to separate the 4 children from one another for terrifying stretches of time, each one alone in freezing water, calling out for the others until they found each other again. There was no father waiting on the shore here, no dwelling built for comfort, no crowds of listeners drawn by beautiful song, just cold water, grey sky, and each other. One night a storm came that was worse than any before it. The waves grew so violent that the 4 swans were scattered across the dark water, each one alone, fighting simply to stay afloat. Fionnuala, though exhausted and frightened, called out again and again in the storm, her voice carrying over the wind, calling her brothers' names, so that even separated by the waves, they would know she was still there, still searching, still holding them together in spirit, even when the sea itself tried to tear them apart. By morning, when the storm finally passed, the 4 of them found each other again on a small rock, half frozen, exhausted, but alive. And Fionnuala gathered her brothers beneath her wings once more, the way she had every night since the course began, and she sang to them until they slept. Through all those 300 hard years on the Sea of Moyle, that never changed. However far the storms scattered them, however cold and cruel the sea became, they always found their way back to one another by nightfall. And slowly, so slowly, it must have felt endless, those 300 years too came to an end. The final 300 years were spent upon the western sea by the small island of Inishglawr, off the coast of what is now County Mayo. This water was calmer than the Sea of Moyle, though still lonelier than the lake they had known as children. By now, nearly 600 years had passed since they had worn human skin. Everyone they had once known, their father Lir, the kings and travellers who had listened to their song at Deravara, had long since passed away. The very world above the water had changed beyond recognition. But the four of them remained together. That, through everything, had never once changed. In time, a hermit monk came to live on the small island nearby, and hearing their song, he came to know them, and he cared for them gently in his own quiet way. He would speak to them of a new faith spreading across Ireland, of bells ringing where none had rung before, and though the Swan children did not fully understand this new world, they found comfort in his kindness. And slowly the 900 years drew to their close. When the 900th year finally came, the four swans felt their feathers begin at last to change. Their white wings softened, their swan bodies began slowly to return to something like their old human shapes. But 900 years is a very long time, and what returned to them was not the young bodies they had worn as children. They had lived 900 years, and in the final moments of the curse breaking, they became at last very old, ancient beyond any measure a human life usually allows. The old hermit monk found them there on the shore, no longer swans, but four very old people holding onto one another, and in their final moments together at last in human form after 9 centuries as swans, he baptized them there on the sand in the new faith that had come to Ireland in their long absence. And it is said that Fionnuala, who gathered her brothers beneath her wings every single night for 900 years, asked that they be buried together in a single grave so that they would never again be apart. And so it was done. The children of Lir, who endured 900 years of cold water and lonely skies, sustained only by each other's presence and a song no one has ever quite matched since, were finally gently allowed to rest together. This is the story of the Children of Lir, one of the oldest, saddest and most beautiful stories Ireland has ever told. I think part of why it has lasted so long is because underneath the swans and the curse and the ancient magic, it's really a story about enduring something difficult by holding on to the people you love. Fionnuala never once let go of her brothers through storms, through exhaustion, through 900 years of waiting. And in the end, that holding on was what carried them through the rest. You don't have 900 years to wait tonight. Just a few more minutes and then sleep. Let your body grow heavy now, the way the swan's wings finally grew heavy at the very end of their long wait. Let your breathing slow. In through the nose, slow and full, and out, long and easy. Whatever you've been carrying today, however long it felt, however hard the day was, it's coming to its rest now, just like their long story finally did. You're safe, you're warm, you've done enough for today. Let it all go now. Good night. Thank you for spending this time with me at Quiet Ireland. If you love this story, please subscribe. I'll be back next week with more Irish folklore and gentle stories to help you rest. Sleep well. Welcome back to Quiet Ireland. I'm glad you're here tonight. Tonight, I want to tell you about a figure that almost everyone in Ireland has heard of, but very few people talk about it openly, even now, even in a country as modern as Ireland has become. The Banshee, the woman of the fairy mounds. If you ask an older person in rural Ireland about her, you will often notice something interesting happen. They'll smile a little uneasily and say something like, sure, that's just an old story. And then, almost every time, they'll tell you a story anyway. One their grandmother told them, or one that happened. They'll say to someone they actually knew. Tonight, I want to tell you what the old stories say about the Banshee, where she comes from, what she does, and why, even today, certain families in Ireland still listen on certain nights for a sound they hope never to hear. Get yourself comfortable, pull the covers up, close your eyes if you haven't already, and let me tell you about the Banshee. In the old stories, the Banshee is not a ghost exactly, and she's not quite one of the fairy folk either, though she's closely tied to them. She occupies her own strange place in Irish belief, something between this world and the next. She is almost always described as a woman, sometimes young and beautiful with long hair that she combs slowly, endlessly as she sits by a stream or at the edge of a wood. Sometimes she appears old, grey-haired, wrapped in a long cloak or shroud, her face marked by centuries of sorrow. But whatever form she takes, her purpose in the old stories never changes. She is a keener. In the old Irish tradition, this was a formal ritual crying for the dead. Professional keening women were once hired to attend wakes across Ireland to cry and wail and sing a lament over the body of the person who had died, giving voice to a grief too large for ordinary words. The Banshee in legend is the otherworldly version of that keening woman. When someone in certain old Irish families is about to die, she comes, not to the dying person directly, usually, but to the land around their home. And there, in the darkness, she begins to cry. Her cry is unlike any human sound. The old descriptions call it a long, rising wail, sometimes soft as wind through the trees, sometimes rising to something closer to a scream. People who claim to have heard it say it doesn't sound entirely human, and it doesn't sound entirely like anything else either. It sits in some strange, sorrowful place between the two. And here is the important part of the old belief. She is not the cause of the death. She is only its messenger, a warning arriving ahead of grief, giving a family the strange mercy of knowing before they're told. One of the most fascinating parts of the old Banshee tradition is this. She isn't said to cry for just anyone. In the old stories, the Banshee is bound to particular families, old Gaelic families, most often ones whose names begin with O' or Mac. The O'Briens, the O'Neills, the O'Connors, the O'Gradys, the MacDonalds, families whose roots in Ireland go back centuries, sometimes to the old High Kings themselves. The belief was that each of these old families had, so to speak, their own Banshee, a guardian spirit of sorrow, tied to that bloodline specifically, who would follow the family down through the generations, appearing at the death of any member wherever in the world they happened to be. There are old accounts written down by folklorists in the 18 and 1900s, collected from ordinary people across Ireland, of families hearing the Banshee's cry the night before a death, even when the family member who died was far away, a son in America, a daughter in England. The Banshee in these stories was not bound by distance, only by blood. It's a strange thing to sit with if you let yourself. The idea that certain families carry alongside their name and their history an unseen companion who has wept for every death in that line for hundreds of years. Grief itself given a voice and passed down like an inheritance. What makes the Banshee different from a lot of Irish folklore is this. She isn't only a story from long ago. People still tell Banshee stories today, quietly, unusually, about someone they knew. You will hear versions of the same account across the country, told with real conviction. A woman who woke in the night to a strange crying sound outside her window, only for the phone to ring an hour later with news of a death in the family. A farmer who heard something wailing along the road near his house and thought nothing of it until he learned the next morning that his elderly neighbour had passed in the night. Often the detail that gets repeated most is the sound itself. Not loud, not obviously frightening in the moment, but strange enough that whoever heard it remembers it clearly, sometimes for the rest of their life. A long, thin, carrying sound, somewhere between crying and singing, that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Folklorists who collected these accounts across Ireland in the last century were struck by how consistent they were, family to family, county to county, people who had never met telling almost the same story, using almost the same words to describe a sound they had heard. Whether you believe there is something genuinely otherworldly behind it, or whether you think grief and expectation shape what people hear in difficult moments, there's something worth noticing either way. That belief, old, quiet, inherited, is still being carried by people alive today, still being passed down even now from a grandmother to grandchild, the same way it always was. I think what I find most moving about the Banshee, more than the fear some people attach to her, is what she actually represents underneath the folklore. She is grief personified, a being whose only role is to mourn, not to punish, not to harm, not to take anything from anyone, simply to cry on behalf of a family for a loss that hasn't quite happened yet. There's something almost tender in that if you sit with it. The idea that death in the old Irish imagination doesn't arrive alone and unannounced, that it comes preceded by someone, something, already weeping for what's about to be lost, as though grief itself needed a voice before the person was even gone, as though no one in the old telling was ever meant to face loss in total silence. Ireland has always been a country that takes mourning seriously. The wake, the keening, the long tradition of sitting with the dead and giving grief its proper space and voice. The Banshee fits into that tradition perfectly. She isn't separate from Irish culture. She is an extension of it, a reminder that grief in this tradition was never something to rush through or hide. It was something to be witnessed, even by a stranger crying in the dark. There's no Banshee crying for you tonight. Whatever you've carried today, whatever weighs on you, tonight is simply for rest. Let your body grow heavy now. Let your thoughts soften the way mist softens a hillside at night. In through your nose, slow and full, and out, long and easy. If grief needed a voice tonight, it has already been given one in the old story we just shared. You don't need to carry it any further than that. You are safe here. You are warm. The night outside is quiet, and so now are you. Let everything go. Good night. Thank you for spending this evening with me at Quiet Ireland. If you love this story, please like, subscribe and share. I'll be back next week with more Irish folklore and gentle tales to help you rest. Sleep well.